Welcome back to Decoding the Flow. And today's guest, we have Ute Reckhorn, a photographer whose work captures California just not as a place, but as a feeling. Ute is the founder of California Lover, and what I love about her work is the way that she works with the light, inviting mindfulness and a deep sense of being seen in everything that she creates. This conversation it's extra special for me because Ute has photographed me twice over the years, and every time it feels like less of a photo shoot and more like a moment of truth. Today, we are talking about photography as awareness, a little bit about her work and her process, how she created her own style working with the light. We're going to talk about flow states, trust in the creative process, and what it really means to see and to be seen. Ute, welcome to Decoding the Flow.
Thank you, Drica. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited, and thank you for all the nice words.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
All right. So yes, you're right. I mean, it's pretty obvious that I wasn't born and raised in America. You hear my accent. So I was born and raised in Germany. And then I always had this dream of traveling the world, and I did. So I lived for a few years in Asia, in Korea. And then from there, I moved to Brazil. And then I eventually moved to the United States in 2006. And I moved around quite a bit. I lived in Michigan, South Carolina, San Francisco. And I'm currently in LA and love it here. And when you talk about color, I think that's a great segue. I think the reason why I use my colors the way I do, it all ties back to traveling and having seen the world from like many different standpoints.
That's beautiful. I love it. Each color carries like a different frequency. And I
Mm-hmm.
think by traveling, you kind of capture the energy from all over. Really nice way that you put that. So
Yeah.
when
Mhm.
someone steps in front of your camera, how do you create space where they can just relax and be authentic? And I'm telling you this from being behind your lens
Mhm.
before. It was so natural. I almost felt like a model. What are the tricks on
Yeah.
your
First of all,
creation process?
thank you, because your words mean a lot to me. And that is something that is definitely a goal of mine, to make my models or my clients comfortable in front of the camera. And it is something that didn't come natural to me. It was actually my biggest obstacle when I started out as a photographer. I was so nervous behind my camera. I was probably more nervous than the nervous client in front of my camera. So that was an experience that made me relate to how people must feel in front of my camera when I'm nervous behind my camera. And then I think overcoming my own nervousness and becoming more grounded with experience helped me to then be like welcoming and very aware, also in tune with my customers' needs. So the way I do that and I approach every photo shoot is I really like to get to know a person before I photograph them. And you might remember when we first met, I did not just grab my camera and took pictures. We basically sat and we talked a little. I do that, A, because I'm a curious person. I love to hear other people's stories. And in your case, it was so easy to relate, both of us. I mean, being born and raised in Brazil. I have so many good memories of my time in Brazil. I wish I could go back. So that was very easy to connect with you. Like I said, there's always this curious part in me. You mentioned before that you have a career in journalism, and that was actually a dream of mine when I was younger. And I always see myself a little bit also as a journalist as much as I see myself as a photographer. So diving into a person's personality is really interesting to me, and I try to figure out who you are like quickly on the fly, because there's only so much time that I get as a photographer. But it really is important to me because I don't take my pictures from a source of, let's say, commercial. My pictures are not commercialized. So I really try to find someone's being, soul. I try to represent that in the pictures. And that's what drives me, actually. I really love telling these stories, and I love finding the essence of someone in what they say and how they behave. And then I try to put all that in the pictures. And it sounds a little bit maybe it sounds like a lot and maybe even undoable, but that's it's truly my work process, and it's also what drives me.
Yeah, and you have to check it out her work because it's a very beautiful, like Ute was saying. It's a different approach that she carries, and she does this incredible work with the light, almost like to shape and to recreate forms with her lenses. And I would love for you to explain a little bit better, like exactly how you do it and how you created that signature style. But you
Yeah.
really do bring almost the inside out. Like, yeah, you can have the perfect makeup, but that's not what I'm looking for. You go from that soul's perspective and how using your aesthetic, you shape. It's almost like a collaboration with the person's authenticity and
Mhm.
your authenticity.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, that's exactly what it is. And when I can't have that, I just can't work as a person. So if I can't have that access to someone, it's very hard for me. I mean, I can still do it, but those pictures don't mean as much to me. And I don't really, it's not what drives me. But what drives me is to find this connection, and to show a bit more than just the face or just the body in the picture. So that's why, going back to the idea of having a little interview before I work with someone, and even if it's brief, it can be 5 to 10 minutes, but I always feel like I'm kind of sensing a person out, if that makes sense. And then from there, it just randomly pops up in my brain. And I think this is why I was so curious about your podcast, this whole idea about the flow, decoding the flow, flowing in your work. That is what opened all these doors for me. And this is why it was so hard when I first picked up a camera and I didn't have the knowledge about camera and photography, about my camera and photography. So then I couldn't flow, but I also didn't even know what that means. But the longer I do this, and I have been a photographer for 14 years, 15 years, 16 years, something like that now, the more natural it becomes, and it's where my creativity comes from. It's nothing that I can really explain, honestly. I have my preferences. You've seen when we work together how I use prisms in my photography. Sometimes I use foils, I use jewelry, I use whatever I can find that is easy to be used. And again, that goes back to experience. The longer you do it, the more you see. Like yesterday, I was walking at the beach and I only brought my camera, but then I saw like a stone, a little rock on the beach, and I picked it up and it had like all these little holes. You might have seen those before. And the sun was coming through, and I was like, man, how would that look in front of my camera? And I tried it out, and it actually worked. And I found a can like on the parking lot. It was like a soda can, but it was like really flat because cars had driven over it. So I was like curious, how would that look? And it worked too because it reflects the sun and the light, and you can use all these things in your photography. And I love to play with my photography. It's never work for me. It's like being there. I feel like a vessel, honestly. Connect with a person or a subject, and then from there, I allow things to happen.
And when exactly did you start to play with the photography? Like you were saying, you find pieces of interesting shapes that then the light will reflect in front of the camera, and then you play with your model, let's
Mhm.
say, or the person that you're working with, personality, to create something so unique that I've never seen anyone doing it the way you do it. How did you first start playing with the light and the shapes and the forms?
Yeah, I remember that. So I always had a preference for the odd things in life. So for me, that's something that always intrigues me. So when I first worked as a photographer, I realized I got quickly bored, like what is so special about my pictures with regular lenses and the regular camera? I felt like anybody can do that. I didn't feel like entitled to carry the title photographer, and I wanted more. So then I started looking around and I found out, oh, there's a market for specialty lenses. So I started working with specialty lenses. And that opened the door for me. And that was big because I lost the rigidity, what is the word? Like my
Rigidity.
pictures, yes, exactly. Like my pictures lost the stiffness, because I
Mm.
started playing with these lenses. So for example, there are lenses made by a company called Lens Baby. You can move these lenses in the socket, so it's a very playful approach. And that opened doors for me that I hadn't seen before. And then from there, I was like, because I kept looking around what other photographers do, and then I realized, oh, there's this whole genre of film photography. And then I started learning about light leaks and old film, like expired film, what people do with that they use fault, like object of beauty. I wanted to figure out how can you do that. So I played with all that, and then I remember one afternoon I was working with my daughter. I took pictures of her, and I was like really honestly bored. I was like, oh my God, and she was bored too. Like, oh mom, how many more portraits do you need? So I was about ready to leave, and then I remember how I looked down, and there was like a piece of glass, a chart, like a broken piece of a green bottle. And I
Mm.
picked that up, and for whatever reason, I was like, I wonder how that would look in front of my camera. And I expected it to change the tint of the image. But what actually happened is glass can capture when you hold it in a certain angle, it captures the light, right? So it captures some sun rays and it created like beautiful little light orbs on my photo. And I was like hooked. I was like, my God, this is it. This
Wow.
is what I want to see. So, and then I started working with all that. I bought prisms, really struggled with that. I thought, I honestly thought, okay, now I have it. All I need is a prism. I'm there. Okay, good. And then I got this prism and nothing worked, because there's so much more to it. You need to understand how to use the light, which light is working. You really need to master light before you can introduce all the other things. But now I had reason to want to do that. And this is how it started.
That's so incredible. And then if you haven't checked her work, you can see through her background how she used the interplay of figures. And then on her left side, the yellow part, it's what that texture you bring. Fascinated. Let's
Yeah, I honestly feel like a child. I play like playing with color. You know that. I mean, I feel we do similar things with different mediums. When you paint your pictures, I think you have a very similar experience that you stop thinking about what you want to produce, that it just happens. And once you reach this mindset, this state of mind where you just play and you're curious, you're like, okay, what happens if I add this? And if I change the angle a little? And yeah,
that's exactly the flow states,
Mhm.
right? Almost like receiving the feedback loop that you
Mhm.
almost feel what to do next and you don't even doubt yourself. You just keep experimenting, exploring, and then out of the sudden, you look back and you don't even remember how you've done something like this.
Yeah, that oftentimes happens to me that I upload my images and I'm like, when did I do that? You know, and
Isn't
it's
that
that
fascinating?
was a good subject that you just touched, that you lose fear, because I feel like fear is such a big thing for us as artists, and it's the one thing that really stops us from being in the flow. So for me, when I am in the flow and getting in the flow while I do my work is relatively easy. I know which buttons I have to push. Good sleep helps, good nutrition helps, a good mindset helps, a good playlist, all these things help. Obviously, a good subject, a willing subject, a nice environment makes things easier, but that's not really what is important. But where I feel like fear is still my biggest enemy is then later once the thing is produced, like being okay with that. Like, ooh, this is different. I mean, in the first place, I wanted it to be different, but then it's like, okay, it's very different. What will people say? Will they think I'm crazy? It's like, can I even show that to the world? And that's when I really still struggle.
Yeah, what they say about the flow states, it has a ratio between your knowledge and skills and how hard it is, the challenge. It cannot be difficult for you to do it because you start doubting yourself. But it
Yeah, that makes sense.
cannot also be easy that you
Hmm.
have no challenge at all. They say it's a 4% challenge compared
Hmm.
to the skills that you have. And it seems like abstract, but you have to challenge yourself a little bit more every time that you will create something if you wanted to achieve flow
Yeah, no, I
states.
don't think it's abstract. I think that is pretty true to what I experience. Like when I have used a method too often or a location too often, and I'm too familiar with it, then it's no longer fun, you know?
You get
Yeah,
because
I'm like,
you're
okay, can't do this anymore. How did I find joy here like in previous weeks? Why am I not feeling it now anymore? And then it's time to move on, actually, to try a new technique, maybe to take a break, find a new location, find a new challenge. And I think what you just said, the 4% rule, is like getting out of your comfort zone, but not getting too uncomfortable.
yeah, because once you get too uncomfortable, you get that fear-based coming
Also,
back
I think
online.
if you get too uncomfortable, it's not only fear, sometimes it's also not having the tools. If you make yourself like too uncomfortable, you might not know how to master a certain
Yeah.
technique.
And then you
Let's say
get
all of a
anxious.
sudden I'm like, okay, I had enough of my colorful beach photography. Now I want to do black and white. I will not get in that flow overnight. I mean, I could get there, but it would take me weeks and months of practicing and learning this new language.
Which is something that we don't really hear people talking about starting something from the zero ground, or maybe like a little bit, but you want to master. You're not
Hmm.
gonna be in flow all the time. You just have to be comfortable
Hmm.
not being as good as you want it to be, but the only way that you are going to be good is by doing it. So you really have to get comfortable of sucking a little bit at the beginning. That's normal. That happens to everybody, right?
Yeah, and I think the reason we don't talk about that, there are multiple reasons. A is shame. I'm doing this, but I'm really not good at it. And then it's probably also doubt, like, will I stick with this? Will I ever get better? And all that makes it very hard to talk about it because we feel like very little all of a sudden. And we do like to feel great and be praised, right?
I always say that on my art classes, like, well, if you never painted before and if you're expecting this first art piece to be a masterpiece,
Mhm.
it's almost like a child abuse. Because when you're creating something or when you're learning something, you have to go into the child innocence that you're open to play and experimentation,
Mhm.
especially on the creative field.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree.
So you have to have that innocence and sense, sit down and just think about the ways that you can explore, play,
Absolutely.
easy. You cannot be really hard on yourself. It's just adults. If you
Right.
see a child like practicing yoga,
Hmm.
they will fall down or they're gonna start laughing and do it
Hmm.
again. If
Hmm.
you go to an adult yoga class and you cannot do like a tree pose, you're gonna feel embarrassed. And
Right.
this
There's
is
a lot
so
of
wrong.
tension. It is. It's kind of sad, but I think you just mentioned your art classes. I think this is where community comes into play and can be like super helpful, where we surround ourselves with people like us who also want to try something out. And I think that is like great that you can exchange your stories and or like talking to a friend, like telling them honestly how you feel and then to hear, oh yeah, and that reminds me of I tried this last week and it was really hard. And I think this vulnerability, that is like something, if you can share that with someone, it really helps you to overcome the obstacle of feeling like, oh my God, I will never get there. Because as soon as you share your own pain with someone who is in the creative field, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody is like, yeah, I've been there before, right?
Yeah, I love that. There's a few points that I want to unpack from what you just said, which
Mhm.
is having a community behind you to support you and to share experiences, just like you said. And I know you have a creative community that I want to talk about this. But another thing, which is most important thing, it's you knowing that you are on the beginning process of learning something, a new skills or anything that you want to learn. It's really believing in yourself and trusting in your ability that you can learn anything that you want.
Yes, absolutely. And that has a lot to do with self-esteem, like a
Yeah.
sound self-esteem, like being good to yourself and allowing yourself to make mistakes, try things out. That is like very important.
Yeah. Let's talk about creative community. How did you start? How is it going? How can we all be part of it? And for
Yeah,
who
good
is it
question.
for?
Thanks for bringing that up. So, a few years ago, I decided to sit down and write a workshop because I wanted to share my knowledge and my joy that I have when I go out and I play with my camera. I wanted to share that with a bigger audience. So I sat down and finally wrote a workshop that is actually still available. It's something that you can download. The workshop is called Develop with Light. And then I published that. And it went pretty well. It was a success. I'm very happy about it. And I realized so many photographers started reaching out. They were asking questions. I was like, man, what if I have a little group for all of us where we can post our questions, our progresses, and talk about it? And that actually has been on my mind for a much longer time, this whole community building. So the workshop, writing the workshop was like something that I needed to do to kind of prove myself, like this is something that people actually want to learn, they want to know more about. But then I realized that so many of us are out there who connect over creative photography, who are not striving for commercial photography, but they want to express themselves. And oftentimes they just don't know how, or they feel like that they need a little nudge from someone else. And then I started my Facebook group. It's also called Develop with Light, and you are more than welcome to join. Yeah, and by now we are like over 500 photographers from all around the world. And yeah, I love it. I post like monthly challenges there, and it's a very easygoing group. People pop in and out, they ask their questions, they share their images. We talk sometimes about tech, not so much because it doesn't really matter. Everybody is like agreeing it's not the instrument that you use, it's more the voice that drives the instrument.
Mm.
So it's a lot about how people came up with the idea of doing something, or when they have like a exciting experience, they share that. And yeah, I love being there. I love the group. And I also love this experience of knowing there are so many people out there who want to do this, It's like I'm not alone.
That is so beautiful. So you created your own process and then you decided to share.
Yeah.
And I believe this is one of the most beautiful things and that's probably why I teach art and why I started this podcast. Because you come to a point in your life, I want to help people with the things that I know, or maybe it's somebody that it's going through what I went through 2 years ago or 5 years ago. So I think it's very beautiful. And where does people can find your community you said on Facebook? Can you repeat the
Mhm.
name again? I'll also make sure to add on the show notes for
Yeah, that
everybody
would be
to be
great. So
part.
it's Develop with Light. That's both the workshop that you can Google my name and the name of the workshop, Ute Reckhorn, Develop with Light, and it will pop up. And then it's the same on Facebook. If you can't find it, follow me on Instagram. I'm California Lover there, and you can DM me and I can connect you. But the link is also on my bio.
I'll definitely add everything on the show notes so people
Okay.
can find it very easily and follow you. Why California Lover? I'm
Uh,
curious.
that's such a funny story. So, the reason I became a photographer, there are like a few. So I was a little bored. I needed something to do. My husband had bought a camera. I looked at it. I'm like, can't be that difficult. Why don't I try to become a photographer? Turned out it was very difficult. And then my kids all started school. So all of a sudden I was like home alone and needed something to do. And then one day I read about this new app, Instagram. And I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And to share photos, why don't I join? So I joined that and I needed a name. And by then I had just moved to California and I loved it there. So I named it California Lover. And yeah, it went pretty well from there. I think it's a name that I could sell now.
Probably.
But back then I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, okay, what can I name this? Oh, why not? I love California. I'm a California lover. So that's how it went. And then it went a little bit hand in hand, when you first pick up any kind of creative endeavor, you never know where you're going to specialize, where your niche is going to be. So I tried car photography, event photography, portraits, family photography. I tried it all. And then eventually I realized, yeah, I can do all these things. I don't care for another one too much. I even tried wedding photography and landscape photography. And some things were like too much and others were not challenging enough. But then this creative landscape nature thing fell into my lap. And yeah, it all made sense. And all of a sudden I realized I'm truly California lover.
I love that. And that is another thing that we have in common, and that we combine our love for California with colors, because
Mhm.
how I can never connect California with something that is dual
Yeah.
or it doesn't have colors. You could just be inspired by incredible sunsets, happy people.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it
We are
is,
so spoiled here. And honestly, it inspires me every day. Like getting up in the morning, seeing the sunrise. I mean, we hardly ever start a morning without beautiful orange light, right? I mean, 99% of all of our mornings, we have this beautiful golden morning light. And then that's again how the day ends. It's so inspiring. It's so beautiful. I feel like you have to be present and enjoy that. It's such a gift.
that is so amazing that you're talking about this, because I go on and off on this habit, and it's one of my favorite things to do, which is wake up early
Mhm.
around like 6, and I'll go for a run on this by the beach, and it's sun rising, and the light of the sunrise, it is one of the most magnificent light. I think it's even prettier than the sunset lights. I mean, they're all amazing, but the morning is something so special, and you walk in towards one direction, it's one color, and on the way back is another color, because it's between 6:30 and 7. And you I was looking at the sky today, and I thought to myself, every single minute it's a
Yeah, no,
masterpiece, because
I
we have the clouds, we have the
absolutely.
colors, it is
Mhm.
always changing. It's like, what do you do? It's so beautiful.
It really is. Yeah, I honestly feel like a little bit it's an obligation, getting
To
up
be
early,
present.
enjoying it. Yes, I mean, I feel like I'm so lucky to live in a spot where I can see the sunrise and the sunset. I have lived in other places, many other places, where you hardly ever see the sun all day
Yeah.
because it's either gray skies or it's hiding behind some kind of bushes. It's a very flat landscape. So I feel like this is such a gift. Yeah, I really enjoy
Yeah.
it. I wanted to ask you a question,
Yes,
and that goes
please.
back
I
to
love, I love.
whole community thing. I mean, you and I, we're both aware of what and why we do this for the community, but what do you think is your biggest gift in hosting communities and teaching art in giving?
I really believe it is the encouragement and the empowerment to give people to try new things, to live by their creative gifts. It has always been a dream of mine, and it's one of the reasons I wrote my first book in 2021. It's all about how you can live by your creative gifts, because my most of my life, even though I had art as a hobby for all of my life, it was very hard for me to go from a hobbyist art to a professional artist, because I didn't have the support. I didn't
Mhm.
have the knowledge and skills. And not even that, I didn't have the mindset that would allow me to go forward. I only started believing that I could do in my late 30s. And I don't think that it was a mistake. I don't believe that. I think that was the perfect timing. But if
Mhm.
I can help someone switching from not believing that they are not, one, they are not either talent, they cannot do it, who I am to be creating by the beach, right? Again, go back to self-worth, that you were mentioned something, that in believing in yourself, believing that you are capable of achieving whatever you want. That is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's the driver for you. What do you get out of doing that? What is kind of light that it ignites in you?
I think just by sharing, what I have to go through in order to help somebody to make that path easier lights me up. It wouldn't make much sense just to paint without sharing or overcoming a lot of obstacle and not sharing. What is the point?
Yeah, I'm the same. And one thing that I recently noticed is we don't only give away in sharing, we also receive so much in building this community because there are always people coming back. Either they are asking questions or they are sharing about their progress or about epiphanies that they had. And I find that very inspiring. So I think this whole thing is like a circle. Start
1000%.
giving, but then so much more is coming back. And that is what I love about this whole community
Yeah. I
of work.
love that you mentioned that. And I have written in my post-its, it talks about receiving equals giving. You can only be lacking that which you're not giving. There's a line on a book that I read, and it talks about giving and receiving being the same thing. I remember the first time that I teach an art class, it was for free and for a group of adults. And I had chills in my body. Because it's the joy of sharing, of somebody grabbing it, something and looking, they wanted to learn from you. This is a big deal. It's so beautiful.
And then in a way, it's a creative explosion.
But it was not egoistic. Like, yeah, people are paying attention to me. It was not like that. When I had chills, it was because I was like, there is something here. Maybe I really need to keep pursuing this because it just felt really good. And when
Yeah, and
your
then
body responds to something that feels really good, you just have to keep doing it. It's the same
yeah,
when
and
I first time painted a palm tree. It felt so effortless. And then you keep discovering, like I always say, listen to your body. Your body will give clues,
absolutely, yes.
will literally
Absolutely.
guide you to your next step.
Yeah, we just need to learn to listen to the symptoms and the signals that our body sends. And I think that's not easy in modern days with all the distractions that we constantly are surrounded by. But if you learn how to sit with your body and to really listen to it's all there, the information.
Yeah. I think one of the most important skills, especially in today, is focus. Getting your power back. And it doesn't matter if it's a creative project that you're working on or a study, whatever that is, just understand that your mind cannot multitask.
Yeah, true.
No meaning.
So I hardly ever listen to music when I work, but like you said, if it's music, it has to match the mood. And I even see then the music in my work. So it gets me in a certain mindset if it's the right music, but then it dictates also the work that
I have a lot of different texts between the studio practice and my
Mhm.
fitness. So every time I will start something, and I do it a lot of different things in my day. When I do it, I really stop for a few seconds before I switch from one thing to another to really think of that intention and to put
Mhm.
focus on that specific task that I'm going to do.
Mhm.
It's really helpful. A lot of times you can be on Instagram and then you go to the studio and then all of a sudden you completely lost focus and it becomes so automatic. And
Yeah,
what is the meaning of the things that you were doing it? So
absolutely.
putting that intention, even if it's just to pet your cats, I will put that intention in there and I'll forget about everything else. I direct my mind to that specific thing that I needed to do so I don't get scattered
Do
because
you
that's
have
so
any
easy for
tools?
us to do that.
Absolutely. Do you have any tools when you do that that help you? Because I also pay a lot of attention to that because I also find it distracting to not focus. And I do see there's a difference in how I create. Like when I focus, I see the bigger picture and I see all elements in one picture. If I don't, it's like, yeah, it's an okay picture, but I should have seen that and this while I was shooting. So, what are your tools to make sure that you don't get distracted? I mean, it happens even with our best intentions. The phone rings, someone asks, "Can you look this up for me?" And then you see 15 messages, and yeah. We
There's
are.
something that I really had to learn because I am very anxious normally. And if I have my phone on me, I cannot just leave the reply for, so I turn off my notifications. I leave my phone away a lot of times. I also meditate in the mornings. I
Mm-hmm.
really think that helps you to start your day.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if I'm feeling distracted, I will do like a midday or end of the day afternoon meditation again. And I pray 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
Like,
cool.
yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Keeping in alignment. Another thing that I do is focus on where I wanted to go. It seems easy, but it's very hard because
Mm-hmm.
our mind always will try to pull you back to the negative. So I really have to be so aware of my intention and with an absolute certainty that is gonna work,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that I'm doing. If I'm
Right.
writing an email, if I'm recording a podcast, I have to only focus on the successful task
Yeah, that
that
makes
I
sense.
just did it.
I was just thinking when you said you meditate in order to be able to focus, I think when we create, this is almost like a meditation. When we are in the flow, it's a
Yeah.
meditation like mind state of mind.
Yeah. Flow is almost like we can say it's a mindful practice, and you
Yeah,
can only achieve flow if you have fully focused attention. So it helps.
really
Definitely
does.
helps.
Yeah.
Focus follows flow. And it's because it also has to deal with the brain waves. Your brain waves when you're in flow is like a slow brain waves, theta. So it's not that awakened brain. It's a very slow brain waves. If you meditate, even before you step into the studio or before you have like a photo shoot, just like take some deep breath to concentrate it for a little bit. It will be helpful.
Yeah, breathing is super helpful. And to
Yeah,
pay attention to your breath
yeah,
is something that I learned in recent years, how it
yeah,
really makes a big difference. So, A, it is really important as a photographer that you are able to really hold your camera still. So, I don't like using tripods. I occasionally have to, but in general, I try to avoid it. And then, obviously, another option is to raise your ISO, but then your pictures get grainy. Then I realized the more stable my hands are, the more likely it is that I get the picture that I want, like sharp enough. And having too much coffee interferes with that, makes your hand shaky. Grounding yourself with a deep breath or a few deep breaths before you take the picture really helps to stable your hands.
yeah. Yeah, some people call it induction. It's pretty much when you prepare and you go into a relaxed state, even if it's for 2 minutes before.
Mm-hmm.
So you really take some deep breath, or you can close your eyes and put your eyeballs right on top of your forehead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the scientific explanation, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really helpful. You feel almost like an instant relaxation. You can also count from 10 to 1.
Yeah, I've done that, but I never heard about the eye exercise, but I will try
Eyeball.
that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I
It's
wonder
really
if it
cool.
relaxes the muscles behind the eyes.
I have a question. If
Mm-hmm.
somebody wants to experiment with the technique that you do it, what are the steps that you recommend for someone who have an iPhone and maybe wants to try something new and creative and maybe enter to your community? What do you recommend?
Entering my community is obviously a very good first step, yes. And yes, I often use my iPhone because it works. It works as well as a digital camera. I mean, it is a digital camera, but like a bigger camera. Obviously, you can do more things with a bigger camera, and if you can swap lenses, that's kind of helpful. But playing with your phone is a great first step, and I do it all the time. I do it actually as a creative exercise for myself. So a little bit like a practice run, if you want. Instead of not having my camera on me, maybe I'm somewhere and I left my camera at home because I don't want to lug around the big bag. And now I'm like, oh man, this looks so cool. Then I just do it with my iPhone. And I learned there are a lot of fun things that you can do. when you use your iPhone, make sure that you're a little familiar with your focus settings and your exposure control. It's easily done. I just touch the screen and you see the sun going up and down. And that helps. And then you could start, for example, as holding random things in front of your lens. It could be as easy as a piece of jewelry that you can hold in front of your lens, and you can see if you can get some kind of sparkles or reflection. And I think once you start, you will find more ideas. And then lastly, you can buy my workshop.
So
I
trust
have
and
I have a fun
surrender.
thing that is actually something I can show. So I have my
Yes,
phone,
please.
like we all do, right next to us. So iPhone, right? And
Yes.
Look your iPhone first.
it's talking. And then here's my case. So that's something that I oftentimes do when I photograph. I take the case off, and mine is like this holographic.
Oh, wow.
And then I just hold that the other way around. So with the colorful thing in front of my lens, and I kind of frame the lens, and then you get effects on your pictures. Not something that everybody
Wow.
can do. You can do that with a normal see-through case too, or any kind of case, honestly, as long as it is some kind of plastic. Leather wouldn't work so well. But like I said yesterday, I used a rock in front of my camera, just something that is either reflective or has a hole. So shiny.
Fascinating. Do you have any routine for your creative practice?
Like what? What do you mean? Sorry.
Routine that
Oh,
you
routine.
follow before a photo
Um,
shoot or on your daily basis that you think it might be helpful to someone who wants to also pursue a creative career?
when I work, one thing that I do is I turn my phone off. Like, do not disturb, do not ring, do not disturb me. That is the biggest thing for me. And
Mhm.
we basically touched on that before. And then it depends a little bit on if I go for a paid photo shoot or if I do something for myself. If I go out because I want to have fun with my camera, um, I make sure that I'm in a good mood. And that means that I have eaten before I leave and I don't show up finally at my destination. Now I'm hungry because then I cannot focus. Here in the South Bay in LA, there's always some kind of good food in the air and it can be very tempting to hit the next restaurant instead of the beach. And I mentioned that before. I have playlists for certain moods. Like I have my beach playlist, I have my dreamy playlist, I have my playlist for days when I feel like a little sluggish and I need a little more energy. I love to listen to reggaeton. Yeah, so that helps me a lot. What else do I do? I make sure that my camera is, my battery is charged, my memory card is freshly formatted, and I have one lens, not multiple lenses. Back
I
when
love
I
it.
was like still a little more unexperienced, I would bring all my things, like 10 lenses and all the prisms and foils. And then I arrived at the beach and I was like, oh God, I don't know what I want to do now. So the variety that I thought would help me was actually something that was very distracting. And that is something that I also do. I love to spend a lot of time with one lens or one prism because these things, I mean, you need to learn them. Like we said before, children play, and as adults, we often expect to be perfect right away. If you give me a new lens, I will not create great pictures with that from the get-go. I will have to figure it out. Like, how does it react towards incoming light? How does it react when I hold something in front of the lens? What does this focal length do to the overall composition? Those are things that you need to figure out. It's basically like a new car. I mean, yes, you will be able to drive it, but it takes a little while until you have the intuition again, like without touching the right buttons while you drive. That is something you do after like a few weeks, but you don't do it on day one, right? On day one, everything feels a little uncomfortable and like
Mhm.
super careful, and it's a car. You've been driving a car for many years. Still, that's new. And that's the same with cameras and lenses. So taking time, playing around, and then focusing on one thing instead of bringing too many. So
Really great tips. As I was contemplating the skies this morning, we were
mhm.
talking about every minute we have a different sky with different colors. I pondered this question and I want to ask you, which is, what is the purpose of art for you?
That's a very good question. I like that. So, what is
Thank
the
you.
purpose of art for me? I think art is an outlet, and that's what I love most about it, that it allows me to channel my emotions. Sometimes I channel things, and then only after I have done that, I realize how I really feel. Like on the days when I don't feel so great, and I pretend, oh, I'm good, I'm all right. And then I come home and I photographed all afternoon in black and white, and the pictures are really moody, and I'm like, hmm. I guess I wasn't all right. So I love that about art. And then I also love that. So it does the thing for the creator, but it also does a lot for the audience. Like last weekend, I went to this tiny little art museum here in Torrance, and they have a wonderful exhibition, Torrance Art Museum, Tam, about recent politics. And I don't want to go into details, but it touched me so deeply. It's such a small exhibition. It was 2 rooms and maybe 2 handfuls of artists who were on display. It was something that shook me, woke me up, made me talk to a friend. Art can trigger so many emotions. And then lastly, it allows us to see beauty. I mean, when I go to take pictures and I have no plan and I just walk around, it makes me see the world in a different way. Like things that are normally mundane and I haven't noticed all of a sudden appear in a different light. You know, you can move around and look from different angles, and all of a sudden it's something that you overlooked in the beginning is very special, and you hyper focus, and all of a sudden it's beautiful. So that's my answer.
That. Love it. Love it so much. Where do you think your ideas come from? Not
Yeah.
have on my script, by the way. It just came to me.
I love that question too, because I think about it so often. Where do ideas come from? I think ideas are like the expression of our entire story and being. Like everything we've seen, we've heard, we read, everything that made us who we are today is the trigger for our ideas.
Yeah.
It's like it is, I think there is an energy in us and an energy around us that showers us in ideas, and some we notice and we connect with and we follow through, and others they surround us and then they move on. I mean, I think we have like so many more ideas than we are actually aware of. Like, how often have you thought about in the morning when you do your run at the beach? Oh, I want to paint this location, and that's such a good idea. And then you go home, and another idea comes around the corner, and until you finally sit at your in your studio, you might have had like 10 more, and then what you paint is number 11.
Yeah. It is so interesting because what it is that it separates the ideas that you move forward with and the ones
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't. And I
Mm-hmm.
really believe that is related to your programming, the way that
Mm-hmm.
you grew up, where you were just talking about it. They say that brilliant ideas, $1 million ideas, it only come to those who are actually able to pursue because it's that energy that wants to be expressed through you. That's why you had that idea. And if you don't act on it, it's going to go to somebody else.
Yeah, that's a concept that I like. And I think we've talked about meditation before. That's also again why meditation is so important, to learn to focus, to be able to follow through, to pick up a few of these ideas instead of just letting them go. I don't know if you recently saw my reel on Instagram. That was a moment where I just had a funny idea, and I don't even know why I followed through with that one. So a few days ago in the morning, I come back into my home after my morning walk, and I had thought on the walk, I had thought about February and love, and how the next topic for my group will be love and connection, and how that changes how I see everything. And then I walk into my house, and there's this box, this delivery box sitting on the ground. It's a HelloFresh box. And I look at it and I see the hello sign. And I'm like, if I cut out those letters, they would spell love, would they? So then I just sat down and I cut out the letters, made it into a reel, and had so many people reaching out to me. because they all loved it and they were like, where's this idea coming from? I'm like, I don't know. It just popped up, you know?
Saw that and it was really fun. And I think that's almost like my goal for it. Again, I feel in my body, there's this excitement that comes for you. And then when the excited coming in, or you have a hunch to do something, I never violate a hunch because a hunch comes different. You also have to pay attention to your state of being because
Mm-hmm.
you almost don't know if it isn't a creative thing that you have to create it, or if it is at under stress and you just want to create out of desperation
Mm-hmm.
something. You
Yeah,
have to pay attention
true.
to
So
to
true.
your
Oh,
body.
that is something I almost forgot, but I do remember there was a time in my life where I hated my art because I didn't want to produce because I felt like doing it, but I felt like I had to produce something. And that is also interesting, I think, and important to learn about yourself. There's also a time to hibernate, to charge your
Mm,
battery and not to produce
mm,
because you're well run dry and you need to take care of yourself. And I found that very hard when that happened to me. It was like a creative crisis, I guess. And then I tried so hard to keep going and keep going and keep going. And then I hated it even more and I didn't like my work. And then it's like a downward spiral until I
mm.
finally reached the point, like the breaking point. I can't do this anymore. And then I took a really long break. It was a very long break, over a year. And then I realized, look, a spark is back. I really want to do this. And now that this happened, and it was quite impactful, I really also try to pay attention to why do I want to produce? Do I want to produce because I feel pressure to produce, or do I produce because I feel the love, the creative energy in me that needs to go out?
We can talk about this for another
Mm-hmm.
entire episode because that's something that you really we all go through this. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you have to stop at some point and ask yourself why you're creating
Mm-hmm.
that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of the outcome that you're looking for, or it is because of creative expression. I mean, they can both exist at the same time, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if you live by your creative gifts, you have to focus on the outcome too. And that's a very interesting way to navigate because you have all of the freedom to create new things. You either go to the best possible outcome or to the best possible self-expression. So you
Mm-hmm.
really have to take some time, 1 year off sometimes, to really sit down and pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to your thoughts, what is limiting you and what is driving you. So
Right.
knowing yourself, it's definitely can never go wrong with it.
Knowing yourself and being gentle with yourself.
Yeah. Ute, is there anything else that you'd like to share for future projects that you're working on?
Yes, I am working on a future project. It's happening right now. It's my Portraits of Presence, and you've been part of this. And yeah, anybody in the South Bay of LA could reach out and participate. I need more models. That is something that I do because I'm so fascinated by trying to see someone's personality, like seeing more than the face. Yeah, so that is something that I'm working on right now. It's a series in progress. As I said, I prefer to work with people who I can find a connection with, and I think it's something that could be like very interesting for artists, writers, musicians. I also realized a lot of yoga teachers have that kind of energy. So if someone is interested, you know how to find me.
It's been such a great conversation. If you are listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube, make sure that you write in a comment the best takeaway that you had on this conversation and also share with the friends that would love to hear this conversation as well. Thank you so much. I cannot wait for to see what you create next.
Thank you, Rika. This was fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a
Bye.
good one. Bye.